Thank you.
Welcome. But it isn't, but I'm glad when it's over and we can relax a little bit, call them away. They went to a safe room and, is that what they call it?
I think we finished the rainbow. I did already. I think we finished the sugya and we're on page 236, additional brachos of praise. Is that what you have?
I think I missed it.
We stop, but do you see can you say the bracha on only part of the rainbow, the whole rainbow? That's how we finished. Yeah, we're gonna wait.
Home from Mincha tomorrow,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, well, I just got home from Mincha myself. Here we go. Norm is here. Bracha Shakot bro.
So the next one's getting married in Lakewood too. He's trying to talk to girls.
Hi, Norm.
From here. They're coming from Israel.
Here's Yaakov.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I think she's planning, so both gonna be working.
I think we are on page 236, volume 15.
This one takes care of himself.
Yes, I think that's right.
That's what I have, yes.
So these are additional brachos of praise. Masechta brachos nun ches Amud Aleph says you have to recite a bracha if you see a Jewish sage or a Gentile scholar or a king. Tan Rabbanan, Haroe Chachmei Yisrael, Omer Baruch Shecholak Mechachmasol Yereya. Chachmei Umasa Olam. Let's say you saw Isaac Newton, or I guess Albert Einstein. Even though he was Jewish, he would be somebody, right, who has secular wisdom. Oimer Baruch Shnasan Mechachmasol Lebasar V'Dam. Blessed is he who gave his wisdom to a human being. Haroe Malchei Yisrael, you see a Jewish king. Omer, Baruch Shecholek Mechvod Dali Reyav. Blessed is he who gave some of his kavod to those who fear him. Malchei Umasa Olam, to a Gentile king or queen. Omer Baruch Shnatzon Mechvod Lebasar V'Dam. Omer Rav Yechon Lo'olam Yishtadel Adam Lorutz Likras Malchei Yisrael Lo Likras Malchei Yisrael B'Vad. You should greet a Jewish king and a non-Jewish king. You'll be able to, once the time of the Mashiach and Olam Haba, you'll be able to distinguish between the covet of a Jewish king and the covet and the difference between a covet to a non-Jewish king. Chaim, we're on 236.
Thank you.
Shulchan Aruch Chaim Reish Chav Daled. Haroe Chachmei Yisrael Oimer Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Shechalak Mechachmaso Liyireyav. And Haroe Chachmei Umasa Olam Od Dekachovim Shechalchavim B'Chachmasa Olam. You see a wise man who's non-Jewish. Omer Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Shnasan Mechachmaso Lebasar V'Dam. The Taz, who is the commentary on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, gives us a reason for why there's a difference in these brachos. Haditani b'Yisrael shecholak u'u'umar shenasan reisi. What is this shecholak that he that he gave over versus Nosan give. Why Chelek Cholak versus Nosan? Ra'isi Teretz, Terutze Rabbi. He saw many answers. Venerally Iker, the Yisrael Yesh Tam Lefi Shehem, Dvekim Bo Yisbarach. Jewish king cleaves to Hashem. Most Jewish kings. We had plenty of Jewish kings who did not. Because Shata Omer Cholak, Tzarcha Taladas, Memin Nechlak, and by saying Cholak, he shared of his kavod, you're announcing that it was shared from Hashem. Nimtza sheyesh yichus l'chalek acher mishnes chalek mimenu. Right? There's a connection between Hashem, who gave of himself, to the Melech Yisrael. Ma she'ein kein b'umasolim she'ein lam yichus acher hanosei. There's usually not a connection between a Gentile king and a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So there's no cholak. It's nosan. Like other gifts, someone who gives, there's no necessarily a connection between the giver and the one who gets the gift. The person received the gift, and that's it. There's really no relationship created. Some poskim, including the Tzitz Eliezer, say that the bracha upon an outstanding Talmid Chacham and that upon a Gentile sage are not recited in our times. He says, "Avabakama Dorish Lefanenu." Already there have been, in the past few generations, how you kvar harbe midolei poskim shehisasu ma'odim yishane od be'efshar levarach bracha zu b'shem malchus. They hesitated to make this bracha with the name of Hashem. And they were concerned about a wasted bracha. The Sefer Yosef Ometz, he lived 400 years ago. B'simin Tafnun Koisev, Shabracha l'riyas chachmei Yisrael v'umasolam lo kosav kimati ma'od. He did not write that he recorded this bracha because there are very few people in that generation who could really be called a sage. Kimati ma'od bizmanenu, mishroy l'kroso chacham. So he advises reciting the bracha without the name of Hashem. That's what the Tzitz Eliezer was quoting this late Achron, the Yosef Oimetz. So the Tzitz Eliezer concludes that it's not proper to recite this bracha. Yaakov, when you were in Tiferes Yushalayim, did people who saw Rav Moshe recite this bracha?
I really don't know. I don't remember.
Right.
I
don't think we were taught to do so. Rav Moshe visited Hillel when I was in 5th grade. Our Rebbeim didn't tell us to make that bracha. Maybe because of this minhag over the last few years, we don't do it.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, it seems to me odd to say that there are 400 years ago, maybe 400 years ago, that there are no Jewish sages. I mean, is there any dispute that Rav Moshe would be a quote unquote Jewish sage or a Talmid Chacham, that Muvak?
Absolutely not. Well, that's why I was inquiring.
I just don't remember.
Okay. However, Rav Ovadia Yosef rules that the bracha over an outstanding Talmid Chacham may be recited today. Haroach Chacham God l'Chachmei Yisrael, Muflag b'Torah l'Chachmei Avyiras Hashem, Umoira Iros B'Yisrael Paskin Shilas Apis Manazeh Yesh Levarach Alav B'Shem Malchus Bracha Shechalek Mechachmos Leirav. So Rav Ovadia says very clearly. Now, the Gemara said that we recited bracha on a king, as in the other brachos mentioned above. The brachos were instituted for experiences and sights which generated a strong impression. Thus, there are those who write that the bracha over a king is recited only when he is wearing royal garments and is accompanied by an entourage, such that his appearance is remarkable and very distinct. That's Rav Ovadia. Some disagree and argue that it depends on the local custom, and there's no need for special royal garments. It should be noted that the bracha over a Gentile king is mandated by the manifestation of great power among humanity, and therefore the bracha is not limited to righteous kings. By contrast, the bracha over a Jewish king emphasizes the special religious role of the Jewish king, and perhaps one would recite the formula for a Gentile king when seeing a particularly sinful or wicked king of Israel, i.e., if you saw a Melech Yisrael who's not a tzaddik, you would use the bracha for the Gentile king. Contemporary poskim also discuss whether a person should recite the bracha upon a democratically elected head of state, whose absolute power is more limited than that of the ancient kings. According to the authorities cited in the Mishnah Berurah, one only recites the bracha when seeing a king or ruler who has the power to execute the citizens of that country. Today, most rulers do not have this authority, but they do have the power to grant clemency to individuals who could otherwise be sentenced to death according to the judicial system. Some poskim therefore rule that the bracha should be recited. On the other hand, according to Piskei Teshuvas, today one still does not recite the bracha. Poskei Zmanenu kasvu ladun be'inyan hamlachim v'anesim b'mdinos shonot. There's a debate among the poskim regarding the various kings and presidents of various countries. Asher kfufim l'marechet hamishpat shel hamedina. They're constitutional monarchs. They are bound by law. Ve'ein b'samchutam ladun ulahareg. Their position of being a king does not give them the right to adjudicate or to kill. Biyadam ha'efsharut latet chanina or lidchot b'kasha chanina. They can respond to clemency and to pardons. B'Rabbi miskimu she'efshar levarach aleim bracha shenasa michvod l'basar v'dam. And some poskim agreed that they would make the bracha that you do on a Gentile king. B'prat, כשכל החוקים והמשפטים אשר מחליטים מערכת השלטון במשפט של המדינה צריך לקבל את אישורו וחתימתו של המלך או הנשיא. Especially in countries where the king or the president has to sign off on all laws. אף למעשה כמעט בכל המקרים אי אפשר לברך עליהם בימינו ברכה זו. He concludes the Piskei Teshuvas that in our day, we don't really have the right to make this bracha. Ki b'yameinu, levusham chazusam shel nesiim v'roshei memshalot elu ke'ezrachim regilim. When you look at it, when King Charles is walking around, he walks around in a suit. You don't see that he's dressed, or the President of the United States. They're dressed like every other citizen. Einam b'vigdei malchus. They're not wearing the royal purple. Pe'er uchvod kamlachim. Gam ein b'srivatan pamalya. They don't have an entourage. Mechubenet b'rov pe'er. V'hadar kederech hamlachim. And therefore, we don't make that bracha today. What about seeing exceptional animals and humans? The Gemara says that one who sees distinctive creatures, such as an elephant and a monkey, recite a bracha. Tana Rabbanan. This is bracha nun ches amud beis. Haroa pil, kof, v'kafuf, which is a vulture, oimer, baruch ato Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam mishanes habrios, who creates different creatures. The Shulchan Aruch paskins that way. V'asapil v'sakot mevorech, baruch ato Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam mishanes habrios. The Shulchan Aruch then notes that one recites the bracha only on the first time that you ever saw this thing. Haroas hachiger. You see a person who's lame. Vesakiteya. or someone who has an amputee, v'asasuma, or a blind person, umukashchin, he has boils, v'habuhaknim, he has dots all over his body, v'hu mi shemenumar b'nikudot hakot, right, he has dots. Imei mimei imam, they were born with it. Mavorech meshana brios. V'im nishtana achar kach, and if the person was born normal, but he changed after birth, you recite Dayana Emes. But only if he's having pain. But if you see an idol worshiper with these afflictions, you would not make the bracha. And it's only the first time you see something like this. And the Ramah says, it's not just one time in your life, it's every 30 days. It should be noted that some poskim, such as the Arugas Abosem, forbid visiting the zoo based upon comments of Tosfos, which indicate that gazing at animals may violate a prohibition. However, Rav Ovadia Yosef and others permit visiting the zoo when one intends to admire Hashem's creations. According to the Taz, the Shulchan Aruch's qualification applies not only to Daina Emes, but also to the bracha upon conspicuous creatures. That which the Shulchan Aruch said, that you only make this bracha the first time you see such a thing, including the bracha initially of Mishana Brios. And this is the custom of Sfardim, who recite Mishana Brios only once a lifetime for any given conspicuous sight. Based on this, it's the first time you saw an elephant, or the first time you saw a monkey, that you make the bracha, and after that, no. It is noted that if someone recites the bracha upon one conspicuous sight, and then sees a different conspicuous sight, he would recite the bracha anew upon the separate sight. As mentioned, the Ramah writes that it can be recited every 30 days, and that's the custom of Ashkenazi. Ube'etzem plukta zuga mechaber v'Ramah, cause of HaMishnah Berurah, l'maisa yesh lorish yivarach achar lamed yom below shem u'malchus. That if you see a monkey 30 days after the last time you saw it, you could say the bracha but without the name of Hashem. Amnam yesh l'tzayin. Ki b'harbei poskim matzinu shepasku l'maisa shel achar lamed yom yuchal levarach shuv b'shem u'malchus. He brings other poskim who say you can make the full bracha v'imra kayotz b'zeh ach ba'ofen meshuni yoser mimasher apam kodemes, especially if you see a very unusual animal. Gam l'divrei Shulchan Aruch yivarach shuv b'shem u'malchus. You should make the bracha again. A final note on the bracha of Mishana Brios. While the bracha allows a person to respond to the variety and complexity of the world, there is no reason, no justification to cause someone embarrassment or pain for the purpose of reciting the bracha. As the Pnei Halacha, Rav Eliezer Melamed points out, personal sensitivity cannot be compromised for the sake of reciting a bracha. It means you see an unusual person, or someone who's amputated, you're going to make this bracha, makes them feel bad. You shouldn't embarrass the person who suffers from this disfigurement. You should make the bracha quietly. So if that's going to embarrass him, better not to make the bracha. The prohibition of embarrassing somebody, certainly somebody who's in pain, is greater than the mitzvah that you obtain with this. Now, bracha on Jewish graves. In addition to natural wonders and phenomena, the Gemara Masechta Brachos notes that a bracha is recited upon seeing Jewish graves. This is Brachos Nun Ches Amud Beis. Torah Rabbanan, Haroa Kivrei Yisrael. You see Jewish graves. Omer Baruch Asher Yotzar Etchem Bedin. He formed you justly. V'zan Eschem Bedin. He nourished you justly. V'kalkel eschem badin, sustained you justly, v'asaf etchem badin, took back your neshama according to din, v'atid lahakimchem badin, and will raise you from the dead judicially. Marbreid Ravina Messiah Mishmeid Rav Nachman, v'yodeh mispar kulchem, he knows the number of all of you, meaning the number of days. V'hu atid lachyoschem l'kayim eschem, and he is in the future will revive you. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu mechlo mechayam mesi. In addition to the emotions that one may experience from visiting the grave of a relative or friend, more generally, seeing graves often leads to thoughts about the way of the world and the order of things. Chazal determined that through this bracha, a person should respond to the sight of graves by reaffirming the belief in Ches HaMesim and divine justice, like when you make Baruch Dayan Emes on hearing the passing of a relative. Rabbeinu Yonah, the Rishon, sharpens this point, although Chazal stated that some people's death is not caused by particular guilt. This bracha affirms that Hashem's decisions are just. Says the Rabbeinu Yonah, Brachos Mem Gimel, Afal Gav the Kaimelon, Yesh Misa B'lo Chet. There can be death without sin. Afilochi Dino Din Emes. The judgment is still true. Shuhu Yodeh Kol Darchei Ish Kol Drachav Mishpat. And the Shulchan Aruch codifies this. Aroa Kivrei Yisrael, Oimer Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Mechalom Asher Yatzar Eschem B'Din, etc. The Yalkut Yosef writes that even if someone encounters Jewish graves on Shabbat, the bracha is recited, and it is not considered inappropriate for Shabbat. He has another halacha as well, that one recites the bracha even when one sees Jewish graves without entering into the cemetery, such as from the side of the road. Haroa beis kvaros b'Shabbos or b'Yom Tov or b'Chol HaMoed, mevarich bracha zu. V'nachon sha'oinen lo yivarich bracha zu. The onen should not make the bracha. Ela b'Yom HaShvi be'esh sha'oinen l'kever, except on the seventh day of the Shiva, when they visit the kever. Haroa kvar shel Yisrael der chalon zchuchis. You see a kever through a window. Kam ken mevarich berachas asher yatzar etchem b'din. So v'lachen hanoseh badech, you're driving in a car. V'roeh achas l'shoshim yom. And every 30 days, you see a basic commercial Yudim. Mevarich bracha zu. Vein tzarich latzor tzarich v'loket. You don't have to stop the car to make that bracha.
So, if you go down Fort Hamilton Parkway in Brooklyn, there's a very old Jewish cemetery, and I just have never heard of anyone making this bracha. So people who live in Borough Park pass it regularly, and I've just never heard of anyone doing that. So anyway,
It's an often
Shulchan
Shulchan Aruch. Reish Chav Daled. Siman Yud Beis.
okay, I guess I got to rely on Puk Chazi, but
Right, we don't see, right, in a Chanami, we don't see people being nizer in that bracha. Matziv Gvul Amana. The Shulchan Aruch writes that even seeing the state of Jewish residents may invoke a bracha. Harua Bata Yisrael b'Yeshuva. You see a collection of Jewish homes in a civilized area. Kigon Bayit Sheni. For example, when he came across homes during Bayit Sheni, Omer Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Mechalom, Matzeiv Gvul Almana, he establishes the border of a widow. Haroeh B'Chubanan Omer, and if later on you see these inhabited Jewish homes destroyed, you say Baruch Dayan Emes. This halacha sets the bracha of Matziv Gvul Almana apart from other brachas, because it's presented in tandem with another bracha. One recites it either the first bracha or the second. This is unlike other brachos, in which one either recites a bracha or not, having seen a noteworthy sight. He remains silent. It is also significant that the Shulchan Aruch invokes the second Beis HaMikdash. As mentioned by the Mishnah Berurah, this standard may be critical to understand applying the halacha. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Bate Yisrael. Perush, Bate Ashira Yisrael. We're talking about the homes of wealthy Jews. Shemiyushavim betokaf u'gvura kagon b'yishuv Beit Sheni. These homes were firmly and powerfully settled, like in Beit Sheni. V'efshar davka be'eretz Yisrael. Mishnah Berurah says this bracha, perhaps you only recite in Eretz Yisrael. V'zman Beit Sheni komar. Aval v'zman hazeh afilu be'eretz Yisrael lo. Now, this is the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah died in 1933. He wasn't zocheh to see Eretz Yisrael built up the way it is today. But he said, "Bisman hazeh, even Eretz Yisrael not." V'yeshim ufarshim kavanis Rashi dafilu him yishovim ata kemo bayit sheni. So some explain Rashi that if the Jewish state is now settled like it was during bayit sheni, gam kein mevarkim, you would make the bracha. Harif piresh. The Rif learned that it meant to shuls. When you see a beautiful shul in its glory. The cost of Belia Rabid ain't chiluk in Eretz Yisrael chutzler. It's afil bisman hazeh. So if you see like the beautiful shul in Rome or in Florence, based on what's being said by the Elio Rabbah, that there's no difference in Eretz Yisrael or Chutz La'aretz, and even today, but he says it's better to make the bracha without Shem and Malchus. The Mishnah Berurah notes that there are two different positions based on the view of Rashi. According to the first, the bracha is appropriate for Jewish homes, which reflects stability and prosperity of the second commonwealth. According to the second position, it appears that the bracha applies only in the second commonwealth in Eretz Yisrael. In addition, the Rif argues that the bracha is meant specifically for synagogues. The Achronim argued, on the basis of the Mishnah Berurah and other poskim, the Piskei Tshuva writes that the bracha is typically reserved today only for particularly striking synagogues. He observes that the halacha is different in Eretz Yisrael. Chavavor b'Mishnah Berurah v'shar Achronim, but seen there shonos opinions, they finds different opinions. If you see beautiful shuls that are magnificent, he's talking about chutz la'aretz. He says, if someone recites this bracha even on homes instead of shuls, he hasn't lost anything. The Pnei Halacha, Eliezer Melamed discusses the halachic and ashkafic aspects of this bracha at some length, and comes to a different conclusion concerning when it should be recited. While acknowledging that l'chatchila, a person should seek to adhere to a ruling of the Rif and recite the bracha upon seeing a community synagogue, he nonetheless emphasizes that the bracha refers most specifically to return of the Jewish people to their land. In his view, the bracha should be recited upon any residential community which a person discerns as reflecting the stabilizing of the widow's boundary. This applies to any community which is in the process of becoming settled with Jewish residents, even if the particular community is long settled. Accordingly, he writes that one would recite the bracha upon entering about any community within Yehuda, the Shomron, the Golan, the Negev, and portions of the Galil and of the Israel Valley. Thus, if a person sees communities for the first time in these regions, or significant expansion of these communities, he should recite the bracha. In addition, someone who builds a new home in one of these communities should also recite the bracha. After 30 days absence from such a place, one would recite the bracha only if particularly moved by seeing the place. Regarding Yerushalayim, today, Rav Melamed argues that the bracha is particularly relevant. Nirish Rabbi Yerushalayim, Ir Kotrenu v'Tifartenu she'al Churbana anu metablim, that for the city of Jerusalem, that we mourn over its destruction and we pray for its rebuilding, Avshi Yeshuva Vatik, although there's been settlement in Jerusalem for at least 150 years. Ukfar meot alfei Yudim garim, but there's hundreds of thousands of Jews that live there. Nachon levarech al kol shchuna u'shchuna shebonim bo. As they build new neighborhoods, this bracha should be recited. Vafilu al mispar, even just on a few buildings. Binyanim chadashim efshal levarech. Shekain binyan Yerushalayim mevatei yoter mikol et hatzavat gvul almana. It expresses the stabilizing of the widow's boundary. Ostensibly, the broad parameters for reciting this bracha and repeating it upon seeing a particular community or city 30 days after last seeing it create a situation in which a person might be reciting this bracha very regularly, perhaps excessively. Rav M'Rabanan provides a qualification to the potentially open-ended invocation of the bracha. Because these brachas are meant as a response only to those sites which represent a chidush, a novel insight, emotional realization, or insight, a person would not recite this bracha upon seeing areas which have been well populated with many Jewish homes for a long time, such as the sprawling urban areas in and around Tel Aviv. Even in the case of a new neighbor in Jerusalem, Rav M'Rabanan accepts that if a person isn't particularly gladdened or attentive to it, there is no reason to recite the bracha. Now we get to the Birchas Achama. As mentioned in the Gemara, Masechta Brachos 59b, every 28 years, one recites the Birchas Achama, the bracha upon the sun. The bracha is occasioned by the solar equinox, which is when the sun reaches the point where it was at the time of creation, when the sun and moon were put in their respective locations. This halacha is codified in the Shulchan Aruch, which clarifies that Birchas Achama consists of the same bracha of Osa Ma'aser Bereishis, which we learned earlier. Haruach Achama b'tkufata, hu mikavchet lekavchet shana, every 28 years. V'atkufa b'tchilat leil daled, it's always Tuesday night. Kisharota b'yom daled babok, when you see it, Wednesday morning, Omer Baruch Osa Bereishis. I'm sure many of us were in Griffith Park. What was it, 20 years ago? 15 years ago? Your father was alive.
Not 20.
Yeah, but your father was still alive. He went with us.
Right.
2009.
2009. So the next time will be 2037,
Should all live and be well.
God willing.
Amen.
Okay? So 2009, we gathered for Shachris early, and then we saw the sunrise, those of you who were there. The Mishnah Berurah says, Mokom shi chozeres sham l'tchilas hakipa hishas flia ma'aros be'es abriya. That means the sun also has a circuit, and every 28 years, the sun is the same location where it was when Hashem created the universe, or our solar system. But when the sun and the moon were created, it happened at that time. The sun rotates in its circular path, right? Because the Ma'oros were created on the fourth day of creation. So the first time you saw the sun was sunrise Wednesday morning, which is why Wednesday morning we go out and make the bracha. The poskim discuss whether this bracha is a time-bound mitzvah. Some argue that it is comparable to the monthly blessing upon the moon, like Kiddush Levana, which the Mogen Avram does describe as a time-bound mitzvah. Noshim Pturos, the mitzvah says Shazman Grama. Kiddush HaChodesh is a mitzvah tied to time. Ve'alva Gavdei Mekayemes Kol Mitzvah Sazei Kagon Sukkah. Our Ashkenazi women, there's a machlokas between Sephardim and Ashkenazim. The Sephardim do not have their women perform mitzvos that they're not mitzvah to, and certainly not make a bracha if they decide to do it. we Ashkenazim follow the Ramah, who say that women may choose to take upon mitzvahs like lulav or sukkah and make a bracha on it. But Mikol Makom, says the Magen Avraham, mitzvah zu ein mekayim. They don't fulfill it. It can be inferred from the Magen Avraham that the blessing on the moon is a time-bound positive mitzvah. The same should be true for the bracha on the sun. On the other hand, many Achronim write that this is not in the category of a time-bound mitzvah, as recited by Ravad Yosef in the Chavidas. Hagon of Shlomo Kluger b'chochma Shlomo Hevi, Mashakazav Magen Avraham Sham, Shenoshim b'turis mebirchas alavona, shemitzvah saseh shazman gramahi, v'afilu l'minagam shemivarchas al mitzvah saseh shazman grama k'on sukkah v'lula. Even according to the prevailing Ashkenazi custom, that Ashkenazi women do recite brachos on those mitzvahs that they choose to do, even though it's a time-bound mitzvah, mitzvah zu einan mekayimos. Because of all that, Rav Shlomo Kluger, after bringing the Magen Avraham, commented, "Uludati hu tamur ma'od." The ein l'zein mitzvah saseh shazman grama. He says that birchas hacham has nothing to do with mitzvah saseh. Sheklal zeh lo nemar ela b'mitzvah shekayemes tamid mitzad atzon b'chol inyan v'chol zman. That concept is dealt with a mitzvah that is performed every year and every time. You go on tefillin, sukkah, lulav. Shemitzad gufa mitzvah efshel l'kayim b'choleis. You can be makayim that mitzvah anytime. Ela shatori higbila zman l'chol mitzvah shetiyeh rak b'zman mesuyim. The Torah says on the lulav should be taken on Tes Vav Tishrei. Hilka chanoshim p'turos. Aval halavana sheminiat birchasa enim mipnei hazman ela miniyah migufa mitzvah. Why don't women recite the bracha on the moon? It's not because it's time. It's the mitzvah itself. In birch alea pamachas, shuvena mevarch alea pamacheres. Lo shach b'zeini mitzvah saseh shazman grama. Kedin pri chodesh mischadish b'chol shana shemevarch olav shechiyanu. This is like a rule regarding a new fruit, which is renewed each year, and each year one recites it on a shechiyanu. I'm not sure I understand what Rav Avad is saying here.
I think what he's saying is that it's not a time bound, it's the event itself. So like tefillin, you can only put on at a certain time. But here the event only happens. It's event based, not time based. The moon.
Right, it doesn't happen every year.
Once.
Doesn't happen every year. It happens once every 28 years. So it cannot be performed on they understand mitzvahs to be done on a specific time during the year. That's what Rosh Shlomo Kluger is saying.
But even Birchas HaChodesh, it's only possible once a month. It's not that you can do it all the time, but the halacha is you only do it then, like putting on that lulav or tefillin. You can't do it any other time because the event doesn't happen any other time. So I think that's the difference that he's trying to articulate.
In practice, many poskim write that women may indeed recite this rare bracha, even those who follow the Sephardic practice of not reciting a bracha upon time-bound mitzvahs. Nevertheless, many are accustomed to refrain from saying it, and some might prefer to answer Amen when hearing the bracha. The last approach is also preferred by Rav Yosef. Let's conclude with a piece of machshava. One of the many brachos explored in the Shir is the bracha of Matzil Gvul Almana. This bracha relates to a personal aspect of the relationship of Hashem with the Jewish people, as noted in the Piskei Teshuvos. The language of the bracha, which refers to the recuperation of a widow, is taken from a description of the destruction of Yerushalayim. Piskei Teshuvos says, Ki Yisrael b'zman hagalut nimshu la'almana k'tichsiv hayta ka'almana, like an eicha, that the Jewish people are like a widow. Although there is some debate surrounding the recitation of this bracha upon stable Jewish settlement, specifically synagogues and study houses in the diaspora, it appears that the bracha most naturally pertains to Jewish life in Eretz Israel. This is supported by the language of the brachas we have seen, as well as by the halacha's treatment of Tzurba M'Rabanan as an alternative to destruction, which clearly occurred in Eretz Yisrael, as expressed by the bracha of Dynamis. The Pnei Halacha explains this point beautifully. In Yanashel bracha zu, lahodos l'Hashem al-chazar Yisrael artzam. This is Hakar Satov, thanking Hashem that the Jewish people are returning to their land. After we sinned, Galinu me'alav masenu, we were exiled. V'hainu lalag v'kelis b'goyim. We became a laughingstock and a people of derision by the goyim. Ad shenidminu ki ishal manalek. So we were compared like a widow. Hanodedes shvura v'gamuda, who wanders broken and lonely. Shein la'od sikui lashuv l'gvula, no chance to return to her border. L'vnos's beita. Ve'ata richem Hashem aleinu. Now Hashem has had mercy on us. Ve'shivanu l'artzeinu livnos babatim v'leishev b'savla v'techon. We are able to build homes and dwell in them in security. And the prophecies of Isaiah are being fulfilled. Ki aminu smol tifrotzi, v'zracha goyim yirash, v'ari neshamot yoshivu. Al tiri ki lo sevoshiv, al tikami ki lo sachbiri. He's speaking to the almana. Ki voshes alomach tishkachi, your embarrassment as an almana will be forgotten. Cherpas amanu saichlos is kriot. Ki vo'alayich otzayich, he who lives with you makes you. That's Hashem tzvakos shmo. The Golech Kadosh Yisrael Kekal Artz Yikarei. B'meshech Shanot Galuta Kasher, over the 1,000 years of exile, Kasher Yishuv HaYehudi Ba'aretz Hayam Matzui B'tzara, the Jewish settlement in Eretz Yisrael was in crisis. Mitzukav Hashpala was low. Lo Nagu Levarch Bracha Zu. The minhag was not to make this bracha. It was hard for them. You're talking about in the 1800s, when the Jewish people started coming back, they couldn't really say that their settlements were stable. There wasn't that much nechama in the small settlement in Israel. However, when it got bigger, when the Jews of the old Yishuv who lived in the, in a small area of Yerushalayim, either in the old city, and then they went out to the German colony, the windmill, they went out of the walls. And then when the Chovei Tzion movement came up, they did make this bracha on new settlements. In this light, the Gemara's bracha of Matziv V'Lamana was formulated precisely for the present era, in which we are fortunate enough to witness the restoration of the Jewish people to the once destroyed and desolate Eretz Yisrael. Even among all the brachos related to extraordinary moving sights, which deepen our awareness and appreciation of Hashem, and whose halachot we have studied in this shir, the bracha of Matziv V'Lamana stands unique as it relates to the historical fate of the entire Jewish people. We will close with a short prayer. Rav Melamed writes in concluding his overview of this bracha. He said, through the stabilization of the widow's boundary, and for us thanking Hashem, the following pasuk should be fulfilled. The rejoicing of a groom over his bride, Yasis alayich Elokaich. It's as if Hashem is rejoicing over us. Ve'rastich li lo'olam, I will betroth you forever. Ve'rastich li b'tzedek v'yishmat v'chesed rachmim. Ve'rastich li be'onav yadat es Hashem. Okay. Any comments, questions, he'oros? I'm going to stop tonight. And we'll pick up, we have Tfilas Mincha, and then Tfilas Ma'ariv and Kriya Shema Lamita. I believe that's it. And then we will be able to begin volume 16 in Hilchos Shabbos. I think.
Let's see the king. Let's see the bracha.
So there's a debate. Susie asked when we see a king. So you see most of the poskim
no.
say no, because they don't have power of life and death. And there's a debate if they can, since they can pardon it, that may do it. So you're never going to lose by saying the bracha without Shem U'Malchus.
And president?
The president too, the same thing.
So I was wondering if these brachas are in the siddur with all those other brachas. I think at the end of Shachris, there's,
Oh, this
I
is
think
bracha.
they are there. Maybe not all of the ones we covered, because we covered all the ones that are mentioned by the Shulchan Aruch. I don't know what the Sidurim do, but a lot of the ones on the thunder and the lightning and all, they're all there.
right.
And the rainbow. I don't know about this last one, the Matziv Almana, and the one about the kings and all that, because it may not be that noyeg anymore. The one about seeing the ocean, some of the Sidurim I think have that. Okay, so next week, same time, 8 o'clock. I'll send a reminder to everybody.
Very good. Thank you.
Good night. Shazaya. Kol
Bye.
Tov.